as recording. Marvelous. Thank you, Rob. Right. So let's get started then. All right. So morning, everybody. We're going to take you through a quick presentation on a few things that we're going to be changing from Q1 of 25-26. That's from April, and how that's going to support the new retail model from the view of compliance and stock management in our stores. Obviously, this call is being recorded, so if you didn't hear me say already, stores should not be closed for this call. So if you do miss anything during the call, by all means, please do just review the recording. I'll get the recording out as soon as we can do after. If I can ask you please at this point just to ensure that if you do have questions, if you could just hold those until the end, we'd appreciate that. A number of things you might have questions about possibly may be raised, might be answered rather during the course of the presentation. So if we can just hold those to the end, we'd really appreciate that. We'll start off with myself, and then Madeline and Rihanna will both join me on this call to talk you through a few things. So let's get started. So first of all, I want to talk you through the objectives on what we're trying to achieve here. So first of all, we want to make compliance less time consuming for our store teams. So we're conscious that some of the things that we need you to do take up some of your time, and ultimately we want to make sure that we're using that time effectively as we can. Secondly, to support cluster managers to control their stores. Obviously it's going to be a big change for everybody from April, so we want to ensure that what we're doing enables cluster managers and store managers to do their very best. Thirdly, we want to deliver enhanced support and training to all store staff at all levels within each store and in each cluster. And finally, we want to use compliance officers' time in store for increased support across the board. So we're going to take you through how that's going to look and what we're going to change. So there's 3 streams that we're going to go through. Firstly, audit schedules, which I will take you through. Then Rihanna's going to take you through changes to stock counts. And finally, Madeline's going to take you through changes in terms of compliance support. So let's get started with audit schedules first. So starting off, let's just talk you through the current process and what we're doing currently in your stores. So this shouldn't be news to anybody. So firstly, quarterly half-day unannounced audits. So they take around half a day every quarter. So it's 4 audit visits per year for a total of 2 days. Your current audit comprises of 200 random lines of stock counted, and that's split into 2 halves. First half is your fastest moving lines, such as disposables and vaults. And then the second half is 100 further random lines of stock throughout your store hold. All paperwork between every audit is reviewed. So that's every single return, every single staff discount, and so on and so forth. And then when we leave you with actions that will be reviewed at a later date, normally via a catch-up call with one of the 2 compliance officers. So let's talk about what we're going to change then from Q1. So we're going to move from a quarterly half-day unannounced audit to a half-yearly unannounced audit, but it will be composed of about 1.5 days worth of time in each store. So it actually increases the amount of time spent during an audit to 3 days from 2, but to 2 visits rather than 4. During this audit, each store will receive a full store stock count during their audit, and that will be scored appropriately. More to come on that as we get closer to April. So we'll count every single line of stock within each store once every half year. 2 sample months of checks will be reviewed. So we'll take 2 sample months of things like returns, discounts, stock count, safe counts, all those other good stuff that we review will be taken as a sample. And then finally, we'll leave your store with targeted smart actions, which will be assigned for the cluster or store manager to ensure are completed. Our intention is to use our new workflow software for that. More on that to come as the quarter goes on. So that's audit schedules. I'm going to hand you over to Rihanna now, and she's going to talk you through stock counts.
Thanks, Chris. A month. You get a weekly review of movement by myself and Madeline, where we'll send you an email on Monday to ask you to recount all those adjustments just to make sure that they are accurate. And stock counts are completed by every single member of the team, starting from part-time members of staff all the way up to managers. So I'll have a look and see what's going to be changing in Q1. So the monthly stock count schedule will be getting replaced with a monthly 300 line check. These will be unique to each store. They'll be composed of adjustments that have been made the previous month and any of your fast selling lines. So like I say, no two stores will have the same stock counts to complete. So the biggest change for you guys will be the responsibility for completion initially will only fall on a higher management positions until you've been completed an advanced skills module, which Madeline will talk you through a little bit later. What this means is it'll be creating less pressure on part-time members of staff so they can concentrate on customer service, and it's also reducing the risk of stock adjustment errors. So I'll pass you over to Maddie so she can talk you through the compliance support.
Thank you, Ree. Hello everyone. So going to do the exact same thing that Chris and Rihanna have done previously. So we'll take a look at what we are currently doing. So current process for compliance support. We've got the retail compliance manual and supporting documents that's available to all store teams. We've got ad hoc training that's completed as necessary, and this training is currently predominantly delivered to managers. So in Q1, the changes that we'll see will be weekly targeted training webinars for all team of all levels. So this will consist of 5 bookable courses. There will be 2 held per week on a Friday, and they will be run by either myself, Chris, or Rihanna. These courses will be bookable via your cluster managers. So if you feel that there is a want or a need to go onto one of these courses, you are able to discuss with your cluster manager, who will then be able to get you booked in for one. Chris will be going into further detail on what these courses are later on in the call. The next thing that we've got is RCO competency sign-off for all compliance tasks. So this is a set of induction sign-offs, questions and evaluations that are designed to sort of help us measure your performance at any given moment. The sign-off of these tasks is going to be required in order to complete induction, and therefore to be able to loan work in a store. There will be additional support available in person or virtual as necessary with sales associates. So this is going to be specific support for those who require it, and it will be bookable once again via your cluster managers. So they will be able to request any additional support for you from ourselves. So I'm going to pass you back to Chris to discuss the benefits.
Thank you, Mads. So let's talk through what we perceive to be the benefits of making these key changes to our compliance structure. So firstly, as both of the girls have alluded to, it allows part-time staff to focus more on the core of their job role, which of course is delivering the best possible customer service that leads the industry that we operate in. Secondly, the retail compliance team can engage on a more personal level with store colleagues. We found that over the last 12 to 18 months that we feel like we're losing touch with who's working in each store, purely because the amount of people with more part-time team members has grown exponentially, and we've found it more difficult to understand who is where. By doing this, we will have the opportunity to meet everybody and then therefore be able to put faces to names across the board. Cluster and store managers will be empowered to manage their stores more effectively by choosing the right people for the right task at the right time. That's self-explanatory, really. And it improves access to, consistency and quality of training in key tasks as advanced skills. So as Madeline alluded to, there's 5 key courses that we're going to begin with, and these are just the 5 that we're going to start off with. If we feel like we need to add more of these courses, then we'll do so as needs be. So firstly, cash handling and banking and returns and refunds. These two courses will be considered core courses, and you'll need to pass these in order to pass an induction as a staff member at Totally Wicked. And then we've got 3 advanced skills courses. These are processing deliveries, stock management, and liquid date checking. So those 3 courses will be supplementary courses to the 2 courses, to 2 core courses. Apologies. So from this, this allows managers to plan for which colleagues are best suited to which tasks within their within their stores. So let's go into a bit more detail about these training. So these courses are going to give us an opportunity to refresh this training. Now we've got probably 2.75 of these courses ready to go now, and we'll start testing these out very shortly. But we have designed all 5 of these courses to be engaging, interesting, and to give you a good standing in the subject matter. And for that in mind, we want to use this as an opportunity to refresh the training for existing members of staff at the beginning of April. So starting from the beginning of April, we'll do a full week of training courses to ensure that we capture as many people as we need to. So the first 2 courses, from the 1st of April, all colleagues who have 6 months service or less with Totally Wicked will be required to take these courses. So the first 2, cash handling and returns and refunds. So these 2 will be needed to be taken at the beginning of Q1. What that allows us to do is ensure that everybody is singing from the same hymn sheet, following the same processes, and working in the same manner. It also gives us an opportunity to make sure that the induction training has been successful, because hopefully everybody will come to those calls already knowing all the answers, and that's good. And then secondly, the final 3 are advanced skills training. So from these, from April 1st, advanced skills courses for all non-management staff will need to be booked by cluster managers regardless of service length. So what that means is, in a nutshell, until you've had this refresher and been signed off as trained by one of our team, you may no longer complete these tasks until you've completed that course. Hence why from the April 1st, we're going to ensure that we deliver as many opportunities for people to get onto one of these courses and receive that training right at the beginning. So moving on then, we're going to talk about the timeline for how we're going to implement these changes. So this has already begun. We've been working on this throughout January and back into December already. Rich from Rotherham has put us up in his shop on a couple of occasions for us to get together and work through this. So thank you to Rich, appreciate it. But he's been sat there in complete darkness as to actually what we were doing upstairs in his shop. So we'll talk about that now. With regards to audits, all stores who are currently on a green audit score from Q3 will not receive an audit in Q4. So if you're already green, you're not going to see us this quarter. And I'm sorry about that, but I'm sure you'll be massively upset, but we won't be round. Stores who are currently on a red score, of which there were 28 at the time of writing, although I am aware that a few stores have already been audited last week, and we've got some greens, so that's really good. They will receive an audit in Q4 with the hope of achieving a 90% plus score. All stores should now be keeping a monthly box, as we briefed out in December, and that was in order for us to hit the ground running from the beginning of January, so that we had all of the groundwork in place to start our new audit structure from the beginning of April. If you're not already doing a monthly box, please reach out to either Rihanna or Madeline for just a reminder as to what needs to be going in that box, please, before the end of this week. And then finally, 6 monthly audit and stock visits will commence from the Q1, which is the 1st of April. Just back to the monthly box for a minute. There's a note that I've just forgotten to read there. We are aware that some of the busiest stores have concerns about how many returns they're keeping in store. If I can just let you know that we're currently looking at a retention schedule for that. So we will look to remove some returns that we know we're not going to be auditing, and we will come back to you on that towards the end of the quarter as to how that's going to look. So just hold on to them for now, but we are already working on that. going to hand you back to Rihanna now. It's going to talk you through the timeline for stock.
So stock counting for all stores will be continuing as normal until the end of Q4, which is the 31st of March. And during this time, myself and Madeline will still be monitoring your stock movement and the stock count completion. So there'll be no changes from that side up until the 1st of April. Throughout the year, myself, Chris and Madeline have identified 17 stores across the circuit who would benefit from a stock storage reorganisation project. Due to the time-sensitive nature of the Q1 audit with a full store count getting conducted at the same time as an audit, it's imperative that layouts in each store are smooth and uniformed in order for these to be done efficiently. So therefore, if your store has been selected for a reorganisation project, it's imperative that changes aren't made afterwards. But we will be working alongside the team members to conduct these refits, and several stores have already had these taken place already. So I'll pass you on to Madeline.
So in terms of support, the compliance team is still going to be available as ever to support all stores with questions or issues during Q4. So please do feel free to call or email us with any issues or questions that you might have, just as you have up until this point. Compliance and the SRT are developing new training webinars, sign-offs and induction programs in partnership. So in working together, we hope to create a full set of compliance training assets that are easy to understand and work for you from the very beginning. And all of that is to say that the current compliance support continues as business as usual. And hopefully you'll feel that once we go into Q1, you get even more support. So that marks the end of the slides now. So we'll move on to the questions section. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop up a virtual hand or put them in the chat box. Thank you.
Do we have any virtual hands?
Silence. There's a lot of pages though, so I'll scroll.
You'll scroll. Nothing in the chat box either. Oh.
Danny.
It's going to be very cool. There we go. Danny, yeah. Do you want to come off mute?
Hello. I do apologise. I'm meant to be on holiday, but I was like, I'll jump on the webinar. So I've got a couple of questions. It's not really going to have an issue in Birmingham, but possibly more so in Tyburn and other stores that I'm aware of. With audits changing to by like half yearly, what are we going to do regarding storage for things like out of date and things like that?
So as I've already sort of said during the call, we're looking at retention schedules. So returns, we don't intend you to have more than 3 months at a time within your store. With relation to Datemart Liquid, we're conscious that there will be some storage requirement there. However, we sometimes when we go to do an audit, we may not actually have been to that store within 5 to 6 months between audits anyway. So we're conscious that we'll do our best to limit that as much as we can. But we're also conscious of the fact that we expect the amount of out-of-date liquid to decrease in store. The procurement team are obviously working hard to ensure that they're sending the right amount of stock to each store as necessary, but also with the reduction in out-of-date disposables should be a benefit to us in that respect as well. The majority of out-of-date disposables that are coming through the business is already starting to decrease because iMiracle changed their date structure, so they'll have 2 years on them now rather than 1. So I don't foresee it to be a huge storage issue, but if it turns into one that we need to look at, then we can obviously have discussions for individual stores as necessary.
Okay, and then my next question, and then I'm going to shut up, is
no worries.
we said about managers doing things like the stock takes and stuff like that, especially more for cluster managers. If there isn't staff in their stores that are deemed competent to do stock counts or any like the out of date and stuff like that, what's going to happen? Because the thing is, if you've got 2 different stores to go to, or 3 or 4 for some clusters, if they've not got the competent staff, it's going to actually put more of a workload on the managers, and then they're not going to be able to do what they should be doing with things like training that was alluded to in the previous webinar.
Yeah, so that's the reason for the training courses. So you'll be able to upskill the necessary people from your team to assist you with that and delegate as you see fit. But the idea is to maximize, especially for part-time members of staff, to maximize their ability to be out serving our customers rather than doing admin tasks. So that's the key reason for the change. The responsibility for having them completed lies with the cluster or store manager. Yes, definitely. However, the amount of lines you'll actually physically have to count every month is going to be significantly reduced compared to as it is now. So 300 lines versus back of the vape packet estimations of around 12 to 1500 lines per month actually is a significant time saver. So we don't envisage it taking a huge deal of time for stores. But it's one of those where we need to get it launched, see how we go. But the responsibility really lies with the cluster or store manager to ensure they've got the relevant people trained up and gone through those courses. Hence why it's our intention to deliver lots of training at the beginning of April.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
We've got Wigan. Chris is next.
Yeah. Dave?
Morning, guys.
Morning.
So mine's along the similar lines of that one there, with obviously the competency. Obviously, I use Matt for quite a bit of it when I'm not around on holiday or whatever. Will he still fall within the competency bracket, or is he still going to have to take the training before he can do anything?
He will need to take the training. So unless his job title includes the word manager, currently would need to take the training. But as I said, that's why it's our intention to deliver a lot of training in the beginning of April. So the first week will be dedicated to just doing training course after training course after training course to get to ensure that every cluster manager who should be ready and know they're going to be enrolled by that point can plan for that and ensure they've got the relevant people signed off as training. But for people who are already doing these tasks, these courses should be a refresher and nothing more. It shouldn't be because if they're coming into that course knowing nothing about the task, then they shouldn't have already been doing it anyway, if that makes sense. So it should be a case of sitting down, going through it, making sure they're aligned and they know all of the ins and outs of those processes from end to end. And then once they, if they're happy with that, then they're signed off and they're good. So it shouldn't be a difficult conversation.
No worries.
All right.
Chris, we've got a few in the chat box before the next hands up. They came in before the next hands up. So we've got Rachel Howden. Will the compliance team be expanding?
Not at present. No. It will remain the size it is currently, unless we get lots and lots more stores, but highly doubtful. Yeah, go
Cross
on.
Street. Oh, sorry. We're ready for the next one?
Yeah, go for it.
Cross Street, regarding the monthly box cleaning logs, they are now digital. Would you like us to download and print them and then place them in the box?
No, we wouldn't. So when that was initially written, we weren't aware that the northern stores were going to be going digital, like the south. So as I've said to the southern stores, no, you don't need to print them as long as your area manager is happy with where you store them. For when they come around to do your Mr. Wicked Way audits, then no, they don't need to be printed. We've got one from Nelson I can see there as well. Is there any large plastic storage boxes an option on Lyrico with lids for easier storage purposes for the monthly boxes? I can have a look into that for you. I presume that's Nick. I will have a look into that for you. Mads, could you just make a note of that? We'll chat about that later.
I will do. Guys, if there's any more questions about Lyrico, just because it has happened in the past where we've gotten a bit sidetracked by it, just pick it up individually with us and we can go forth and look at it. The next one's Windsor with a hand up, Chris.
Hello, Phil.
Hello, Chris. You've already alluded to part of my question saying the training will take place first week of April, but I'm assuming that the opportunity to book people on calls will come sort of ever so slightly sooner than that, so that cluster managers can plan ahead for who they want to go and do those training courses.
Yeah, so it's my intention to have those have a booking form ready for whenever it is that cluster managers are announced so that they can start to plan. So so as soon as effectively as soon as your area managers start making job offers, we should have that ready to go to book those courses in.
Lovely stuff. Assuming it's just going to be like a Google Doc through Teams or something like that we'd request it through.
Yeah, there'll be a process. I haven't worked it out yet, but I've scribbled it down in my notebook. It's on my to-do list. It will be done.
Lovely. Thank you, Chris.
No worries. Burry, you've got a question?
Very next.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to go into somewhat of what Dave was talking about in Wigan with Matt, I think it was. But those who are currently supervisors, will we have to go through the training again?
You will, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
No worries. Was that it?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Nice
Nice and easy.
Thank you. Wilmsley?
So it's more to do with like the stock, it's the stock takes. So obviously they're individual to each stores. Will we be emailed our our 100 lines each month to count, or will it be a system in place similar to what we have now, which is stock count schedule, where like a Google sheet gets updated every month for us?
No, so you'll receive initially probably an email, but in the future likely a task that will come to you, which will tell you for your store exactly what needs to be counted that month. And then what will happen is at the end of that, once you've done those counts, you'll send the result back to us with your overage or shortage that stems out of that stock count.
Okay, thank you.
Because it's unique to every store, so we can't have a shared sheet for everybody because everyone will have completely different things.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No worries. Any further questions? Oh, Frank's put one in. 300 lines monthly stock count. Is there anything in place to make the back office approach faster to completing the stock count? Frank, could you maybe come off mute and put that in voice so that you can explain it to me more as to what you're getting at? No? Yes? Okay. No worries. Right, you're free to
Chris?
come. Yes.
It's Margaret. I think what Frank's trying to get at is that because each line you can't load up like a volts count.
Oh, right. So you mean because you can't like load a category?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. So I'm aware that unfortunately back office is quite slow as it stands at the minute for building a stock count in that manner. But my intention is that these will be able to be done digitally, so you won't actually need to do a paper stock count list, unless of course you wish to do so. But it will be much simpler. So leave it with us. We're still working out the process and how that's going to work, but we'll come back to you by the end of the quarter with further details on that.
Preston with a
Can I ask a
hand up.
question?
Oh, sorry.
Per course, how long is each course? Like per one?
So they'll differ in size depending on the length of depending on the content of the course, but between an hour to 90 minutes.
An hour to that's not bad, right? So the
Yeah.
3 that everyone's gonna have to retake, how long is the 3 gonna be?
But
3 hours.
again, we haven't. They're not all completed yet, so we'll know that answer once we've gone through and tested them all. But the idea is that the course is done. If you're solo manned in a store, then you can't sit and do a training course. So it needs to be booked in and planned in to make sure that there's a second person in the store in order to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
No worries. Preston.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Just a quick one. I'm a bit of a sucker for my stock counts now that I'm back in the business. So I just want to know, I like to do all my stock counts. I like to check everything to make sure that everything's right. Can I still do that, or do I just have to do the list that you give me?
Well, the requirement is you do the list that's given to you, and then we will verify it at every 6-month point. If you want to do additionals, then that's absolutely fine. However, depending on which role you're in, you might find that you don't have time to do that anymore. So it really is up to you. We're not going to say no, you can't do any more stock counts, but things like the monthly, the stock count schedule and all of that will disappear. So we won't produce stock count sheets anymore either.
Yeah, that's
for the
fine.
same reason.
I just like to know where, if something does go missing, that I know where it is and
Yeah,
stuff like
and
that.
if
So
you,
I just
and
like
if
to
you're
know.
capable of doing so, you're more than welcome to do so. But what the idea is to take the pressure off, so that we're
Okay.
not forcing part-timers into counting lots and lots of stock all the time, so that they feel, you know,
He's been doing that
less.
for the last 8 months, bless him, because I've been off.
Yeah,
So
of course, and obviously, if someone is trained to do so, then we're not going to have a problem with that. But we're trying to change the culture so that it's less pressure on store teams to get things done, and puts it back in our court a little bit.
Brilliant. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Danny,
Any
you
further
did have your
questions?
hand up, but it's gone. Have you still got a question?
It was kind of already answered, so I'm good, thank you.
Okay. No
No
worries.
worries. Anyone else? Any further hands going up or questions in the chat box?
Oh, there's no questions in the chat box.
No hands up
Okay.
at the moment.
No worries. Okay. Well, is everyone happy then? Okay. Well, if you have got any further questions that you want to ask, you're more than welcome to get in touch with either myself, Madeline, or Rihanna directly, or you can still use the question link which was sent out relating to the retail model. So if you wanted to do that, you're also welcome to do that. I have access to those questions, so they can come through that way. If you're not happy with doing it in a public forum, that's absolutely fine. Cool. All right. Dave, did you want to say something?
Chris, I'd just say thank you very much to yourself, Rihanna and Maddie. I think the new structure you've put in place for compliance is very, very good and will deliver great support across the network as we move towards the new model. And as we said last week on the webinar, we'll be doing everything we can do to support store teams. And I think this demonstrates that really, really well. So thank you for that. And thank you guys for joining this morning and all the questions. And as Chris rightly says, if you do digest what's been presented this morning and you think through the questions that have been asked and answered and you've got something that you want to ask, reach out to Chris, Maddie and Rihanna and they'll be happy to help.
Agreed. Okay, right. Well, we'll bring it to a close there then. Thank you ever so much for your time this morning. We do appreciate it. And as I said, any questions at all, please do reach out directly. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a lovely morning.
Bye, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.